having a baby.
With the help of a stranger in a parking lot.
She came over and stepped in while my husband was on the phone with 911. Come out pretty quick. I just grabbed her, put her up on my chest. She was perfect.
NAPE strikes a deal.
I don't think it'll be a tough sell.
But will union members accept it?
There's going to be tough decisions to make.
I said, I just can't hire people. I can't get enough people in Calgary to do it.
So he headed to Grand Bank at the invitation of a persuasive female politician.
Onshore flurries, drizzle, some freezing drizzle in the mix that continues across eastern and central parts of Newfoundland tonight through Tuesday, but it's a rainmaker set for the island midweek. More snow for most of Labrador.
Well, sometimes life just can't wait.
This weekend, a mom gave birth to a healthy baby girl in the front seat of a car in a Shoppers Drug Mart parking lot.
And as Here Now's Jeremy Eaton reports, mom got a little help from a total stranger.
It's what every parent wants, a happy, healthy child. But no one can control when your bundle of joy is going to come into the world.
7:15, everyone was asleep still, so I went into my husband and I was like, I think you should get up. And he's like, why are the kids up? And I was like, no, I was like, but we're having a baby.
Nicole DeVoe hopped in the front seat and headed towards the hospital. But time was not on her side.
I think for a second he didn't really believe me, but I was like, no, we got to pull over. So he's like, well, we're in 4 lanes of traffic. I can't, I don't know what you want me to do.
The pair eyed up this parking lot and her husband called 911. But by now, this little baby's head was already coming out.
From what I hear, so I was pretty much in the zone of I'm having a baby. But from what I hear, a woman had walked by and, kind of realized that something was going on. So she came over and stepped in while my husband was on the phone with 911.
And she was starting to crown, so I asked Dad if he would move up and back with Mom so he could support her. And then Mom just went ahead like a rock star, 2 more pushes and she was out.
Christia Tizard just happened to be walking by and offered to help.
Because I wouldn't have been able to live with myself knowing something was wrong and I didn't even just go ask. And then when I did ask, it was like, wow, okay. Deep breath, now swallow.
Along with the new baby, she also got to deliver the big news to Mom and Dad.
They didn't know if they were having a boy or a girl, so I got to tell them, Mom, Dad, you have a baby girl. Like, how awesome is that? Who gets to do that besides the doctors?
Paramedics quickly arrived and got DeVoe to hospital. Today, she got to meet Corinne Fowler and Stuart Taylor to thank them.
You had kind of gotten in the front seat and helped with the placenta and cut the cord and all that, I think, right? So, yeah, I was like, when the haze kind of wore off, I was like, there was a woman there and she was great, and I don't know, but yeah, thank you so much.
With the drama of the baby being born in the front seat behind them, the parents still had to come up with a name. So, what do you call a child who's born in the front seat of a car in a Shoppers Drug Mart parking lot? Well, Carla. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
It's a sweet story. We're going to hear more from Nicole DeVoe on Carla's extraordinary entry to the world later on Here and Now.
NAPE has a tentative agreement with the province following the framework agreement they reached in November. President Jerry Earle says representatives for the 15 bargaining units reviewed the package over the weekend and supported it. But no details are being released at this time. The union says it's organizing membership ratification votes for the new year. Here Now's Peter Cowan has been on this story today, joins us live from the newsroom. So Peter, what's in there?
Well, Debbie, we're kind of left to read between the lines on what both sides are saying today, to sort of piece together what exactly is in this. And from the way they're talking, the victory here for the union is more in what they didn't have to give up more than what they were actually able to get.
We've secured a collective agreement that sees significant job protection in it, that recognizes the economical time that we're in this province, and that sees very little erosion of the collective agreement. That's, in difficult times, you try to protect what you have. Yes, there were some compromises that have been made in a couple of areas, but it's all about trying to maintain and addressing issues that we have heard across this province.
One of those issues was around public-private partnerships. That's one area that the union says they were able to get some stronger protection for their members. We're told that all 90 members of the bargaining unit, representing 19,000 workers, those members are recommending acceptance. Now, usually members look to see what the money figure is in this, but we're already seeing warnings that don't focus on that because there's not going to be much, if anything, in there. Focus instead on things like that job protection that you heard the union president talking about. Government hasn't budgeted any extra money for increases, so if there are extra costs with this contract, it could mean changes to the future budget projections. The finance minister wouldn't say if those projections will have to change today, just that everyone realizes that the cupboard is pretty bare.
Everybody from government's negotiating team to the union negotiating team, myself, the Premier, the leadership of NAPE, all had a very keen awareness of the fiscal situation the province is in.
Now, interestingly, the union today gave a lot of credit for reaching an agreement to Tom Osborne, who was shuffled into the position of finance minister after Cathy Bennett stepped down. Several union sources that I talked to today said before that switch, they were expecting that this was going to end in a lockout and legislation rather than today's agreement. Anthony?
That's Here Now is Peter Cowan live in our newsroom. Now, after years of rocky relations, Nalcor and the Nunatuavut Community Council reached an agreement today. The company is giving the Indigenous group $8 million for community development over the next 6 years, and the hope is that this will pave the way for negotiations on future projects in Labrador. Here Now's Jacob Barker joins us live with the details. Jacob?
Well, Anthony, 4 years ago, Nunatuavut President Todd Russell was lying in front of vehicles that were going to the Muskrat Falls project. Today, he was shaking Executive Vice President of Nalcor, Jim Keating's hand. Russell said that this agreement, that Nunatuavut has long felt excluded from development projects in Labrador. Today, he said it marks a shift in the way Nunatuavut and Nalcor will work together. He says with a federal land claim agreement imminent for Nunatuavut, it's a change of tone for both parties.
Island's in the catchment area, Muskrat Falls is in the catchment area, Upper Churchill's in the catchment area, the Labrador Island Transmission Link is in the catchment area. Yes, all of these current projects, past projects, and potential future projects are within the land claim of the Nunatuavut Community Council. We are not giving the green light to any project with this particular community development agreement. What it does, though, is provide for an opportunity to sit at a table and have negotiations.
Now, Keating said that this is a strategic decision for Nalcor to go ahead with this agreement, and that he hopes that it will lead to less adversarial relations in the future. And for projects like the Gull Island project to go ahead, it would need to be with agreements like this in place.
Federal government, May of 2016, obviously signaled very clearly that the United Nations Declarations for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is going to be a principle by which major resource projects are going to be undertaken here in Canada. And I think of no better opportunity that Newfoundland Labrador actually has, because it's not as complex as other jurisdictions in terms of the multitude of actors and interests that we should embrace it.
Well, with this $8 million agreement in place, it doesn't mean any certainty for projects down the line, but Keating says it could save a whole lot of grief. Reporting live for Here and Now in Happy Valley Goose Bay, I'm Jacob Barker.
CBC News has confirmed the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team is investigating RNC officer Joe Smythe. Smythe fatally shot Donald Dunphy 2 years ago. A judicial inquiry found that Smythe used appropriate force and acted in self-defense when he shot Dunphy in his home in Mitchellsbrook on Easter Sunday in 2015. The independent police oversight body from Alberta has confirmed its members are investigating contact between an RNC officer and a member of the public last May. ACERT, as it's known, also says it is investigating an allegation of professional misconduct. The chief of the RNC confirmed late today that the officer involved has been placed on administrative leave during the investigation.
And now to the final summations in the Brandon Phillips murder trial. They were made today, and prosecutor Mark Harima played the video of the armed robbery and shooting for the jury several times, saying the act was planned and intentional. But Phillips' lawyer, Mark Gruchy, called the Crown's evidence circumstantial. Here and Now's Fred Hutton is covering the trial, and he joins us live to go over today's developments. Fred.
Well, thank you, Anthony. The Crown and the defense spent about an hour each recapping evidence that was presented during the first 4 weeks of the trial. And the two sides could not be further apart, with the Crown contending it was a planned and deliberate shooting constituting first-degree murder, while the defense said at best it was manslaughter. Now, Mark Harima began his final summations by telling the jury that Brandon Phillips made a choice, that he, quote, was all in and went to the captain's quarters with a loaded gun. Harima played portions of the video of the robbery and the shooting. He said the jury had the, quote, morbid luxury of being able to see what happened that night back in October of 2015, and reminded the jury that Phillips told Larry Wellman's wife to, quote, save her husband, to save his life. Harima said it was murder and first-degree murder. The Crown pointed to the DNA evidence that was found on a hat near the crime scene and sneakers and a shotgun shell that were later found at Brandon Phillips' mother's house. Harima said, with all that, quote, we have sailed well beyond the possibility of reasonable doubt. During the trial, the jury heard that before being shot, Larry Wellman used a table to push the gunman back and that the gun was defective and went off when struck or dropped. Harima said, if you think that table beat Mr. Phillips to the trigger, it's still second-degree murder.
All right, Fred, so how did the defense respond to all the Crown's evidence?
Well, it was certainly interesting. Mark Gruchy said the evidence against Brandon Phillips is circumstantial. He asked the jury, what is the Crown's case respecting identity? And he said it's one thing, genetic evidence. Now, Gruchy said you don't have any eyewitness testimony and no motive testimony. He reminded the jury that at least 4 people unknown to them were in contact with the shotgun. The DNA was found on it. Mr. Phillips' DNA was not on the gun, and someone else's DNA was also on the shoes. He went on to say, at this point, I think with a little imagination, there are reasonable alternatives. You have no evidence that Brandon Phillips was inside the captain's quarters that night. All evidence, he said, is beginning to point that the gun discharged because it was defective. None of this is pointing towards first-degree murder, he said, and with respect, second-degree murder either. He said it points towards manslaughter. Now, Gruchy said the Crown has not proven first-degree and second-degree beyond reasonable doubt, and finished by saying, quote, it looked like an accident to me, a perfect storm accident. The judge will give her final charge to the jury in the morning. The 6 men and 6 women will be sequestered by this time tomorrow evening. Debbie?
Thank you, Fred. That's our Fred Hutton reporting live for us this evening. A former healthcare leader in Labrador is expected to make a move to politics tomorrow. Tony Wakeham is the former CEO of Labrador Grenfell Health. There has been speculation he'll soon announce his candidacy for the leadership of the Provincial Conservative Party. So far, there's only one official candidate, Ches Crosby. Wakeham will hold a news conference tomorrow evening at the Murray's Pond Fishing and Country Club in Portugal Cove, St. Phillips.
5 schools in the province are being considered for closure, and the head of the English School District says many more may face the same fate. Those 5 schools have a combined enrollment of 89 students. In addition to the closures, the board has also proposed to consolidate 2 schools in St. George's to save a total of $1.7 million a year. Parents and members of the public have been invited to give feedback on the review. A final vote is set for early February. That means in addition to the administrative positions, 9 teaching jobs are also on the chopping block.
People have moved on, moved away. Birth rates are down. People have migrated, in migration around the province, a number of factors. The demographics have changed radically in a lot of cases. So, it behooves any organization to properly assess its resources, and we do so. And some of those schools would have to close ultimately. I wouldn't nail down an exact number, but there's at least in excess of 20 schools that could potentially be reviewed in a given year.
A history that stretches back more than a century came crashing to the ground in St. John's today. Demolition crews tore down the remains of the Belvedere Orphanage. The building burned last April, but the burnt-out structure has remained standing, tied up in millions of dollars of debt and unpaid mortgages. While that's being worked out, the city footed the $500,000 bill to have it torn down.
Police and searchers came up empty-handed after 2 days scouring an abandoned farm in Bellevue. Five search and rescue teams, with 122 people fanned out into the fields of Smallwood Farm. It was on Saturday. They were looking for any clues about the 24-year-old's suspected homicide. The search area covered off about 100 acres and was the result of new information obtained by the police. The RNC has not divulged any details about the tip they received. Lake has been missing since June. All right, let's turn to the weather. Kind of a dreary day here on the Avalon. Not quite sure about the rest of the province.
Not too cold here.
No, temperature's not bad, but yeah, damp.
Yes.
And that onshore flow that really could be from June to December, really, we see flurries in some areas, drizzle in the others. Freezing drizzle will be a risk tonight. And have a look. This was the scene on the weekend in Catalina, waking up to a little coating of flurries. And those of you in the Gander region woke up to a nice little coating of flurries, coating of snow, thanks to those onshore flurries last night and through this morning as well. And that is, again, going to be the name of the game tonight. Northerly winds will keep flurries in the mix for basically the eastern half of the island. Chances some flurries through the next couple of hours over the west coast, but this area of high pressure moving in from the west is really going to be shutting that down. And as we take a look at your future tracker, which unfortunately I think that I don't have for you. Maybe I do. Here it is. As we take a look at that future tracker, note that we are going to be seeing some clearing out for the west coast and in through tomorrow morning. So that's some good news there. But from basically the Bay of Exploits down the northeast coast towards St. John's, what you see over the last 24 hours or so is really what you get for the next 24, with the temperatures hovering around the freezing mark. Again, a little bit brighter and especially up towards Labrador. But our next system is rolling in from the west, and we'll talk about what that brings. Snow for Labrador, rain for the island, all the details in a few minutes. Anthony.
Thanks, Ryan. A great start for the St. John's Edge. The new basketball franchise swept its first weekend series at home. The team downed the Niagara River Lions 105-91. It was on Saturday for a second straight win. This after the team delivered a nail-biter of a game to a sold-out crowd on Friday, winning by just a single basket. Hometown hero Carl English couldn't be contained in the Saturday game. The lone Newfoundlander on the team banked 33 points, and 8 of those were three-pointers. The Edge play again tomorrow and Wednesday night against the league's defending champs, the London Lightning.
Well, Brad Guizhou beat Winnipeg's John Morris 8-6 today at the Olympic curling trials in Ottawa. The team is now 2-1 and sits in third place. Guizhou's other win was against Edmonton's Brendan Botcher on Sunday night. He drew to the button with this shot. It was a tight one for the 6-5 win. Team Guizhou takes on defending Olympic champion Brad Jacobs tonight.
Well, Danny Williams was in a giving mood today. The former premier handed over a $50,000 check to the people who run Teen Challenge. The money will help pay for a treatment center that the organization is building on the edge of St. John's near the boundary line with CBS. The Atlantic Hope Women's Center will be a faith-based residential treatment center for women fighting drug and alcohol addictions.
Great loyalty, a much lower staff turnover rate than what we would have in something like in a place like Calgary.
The Newfoundland Advantage, why this business continues to thrive here. Welcome back to Here and Now. Dangers in the oil and petroleum industries, such as the massive Deepwater Horizon explosion back in 2010, presented opportunities to a manufacturer that is now thriving on the Burin Peninsula. The energy sector went on a search to find blast-resistant structures to try to protect their workers. And a company called Dynamic Air Shelters responded and set up production in Grand Bank. And it now ships its buildings all over the world. So let me take you on a tour of the plant and introduce you to the company's CEO, Harold Warner. So have you managed to make many sales beyond North America, say in China or elsewhere?
Africa, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan. My name is Harold Warner. I am a businessman. I own a company called Dynamic Air Shelters.
So Harold, who are the customers for these shelters?
Our biggest customer base is petrochemical, the refinery sectors, chemical plants, and then military. This shelter might assimilate to some degree the performance of your car tire. When you hit a rock with your car tire, it will deform and it's resilient. It will come back into shape. Similarly, these structures are resilient like that. So if they're hit by a shock wave as a result of an explosion, they will reverberate and not collapse. So this structure is a safe structure to be in the event of really severe wind gusts, high shock waves from explosions and the like.
So sell me on these products. What's so great about them?
Speed, portability, resilience. So this one that we're in would pack up into a relatively small package. So extremely fast to set up.
So for an emergency response situation. Yeah.
Right. Well, we won the emergency hospitals for Texas because the speed of install, we put up 2,500 square feet of temporary hospital, beds in, oxygen on, 1 hour and 20 minutes.
You are based in Calgary.
I live in Calgary, yes.
Right. You're not a Newfoundlander.
No.
Why in the name of all business sense would you build it so far away from the petrochemical industry? Why Newfoundland? Why here? Not even Newfoundland. Why Grand Bank?
Well, in 2003, there was a project in Newfoundland tied into White Rose that I had a chance on. And I came out here and I had a look at that project, and I first thing I told people, I can't do it. And they said, why not? I said, I just can't hire people. I can't get enough people in Calgary to do it. I met a lady who said, could you teach Newfoundlanders to do this? And I said, yeah, but it's not a push-button business. And she said, look, we'll cover the cost of you training these people. You give it a try, and if it works for you, you've got an opportunity without having lost anything. And that lady was Judy Foote, who just retired as the Member of Parliament for Grand Bank. To follow on from there, in the last 14 years, we have a very reliable staff. We have people who are committed to stay with us. We have great loyalty, a much lower staff turnover rate than what we would have in something like in a place like Calgary. Much lower infrastructure cost. And being a startup, working capital is a big thing, so using my working capital to develop the product makes a lot more sense than it does owning buildings and real estate.
What do you like most about the success that your entrepreneurial ideas had here in Newfoundland?
You know, the guy from Radio Shack stopped me on the street and thanked me for being here because he named 3 families that had bought computers that could never have bought them.
Because of the jobs.
Absolutely. We have people who are very well accredited, very intelligent people with diverse education behind them, and they have an opportunity to really express and do the most with that here.
Were you ever tempted to say, okay, it's been a good run in Newfoundland, but I want to get closer to where my customers are and I should move this to the mainland?
Sure. Have I thought about it? I would be lying if I said I hadn't. Have I ever taken that thought seriously? No, absolutely, because I don't think I can replace what we have going here.
Must be a matter of pride, too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because the reality is what gets you up in the morning with passion. For me, it's a creativity, relationships with people. And it's meaningful. Right now, we're ups and downs with oil industry. So we're developing new products for new industries, new markets. And man, that's really, really exciting.
So interesting, Anthony.
Yeah.
And Harold Warner was saying a very low turnover with the staff. You got to meet some of them.
Yeah, exactly. I met some of the workers in Grand Bank, and some of them, you saw some of the seamstresses working with the plastic in that item. Many of the women who worked there used to work in the fish plant, and they told me that there's a lot cleaner, and they're very, very grateful for those kinds of jobs in Grand Bank because, Grand Bank needs those jobs, the Burin Peninsula. So a lot of people are very grateful to the company.
Yeah, like I said, very, very interesting look at that business. For the downtown Christmas parade, Santa Claus had a big red sleigh. Ryan, a big red fire truck. Wow.
Yeah, this picture was taken by Evelyn Johnson, the super moon that was last night in Trouty, and thanks very much for sharing that, Evelyn. Perfect shot when the clouds parted.
Super clarity.
That is
very
beautiful.
Nice. Yeah, well done. A lot of excitement, of course, and screams along the sidewalks of downtown St. John's yesterday.
Yeah, thousands showed up for the downtown Christmas parade.
Because they knew Ryan was there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the only reason. Occasional flurries, bit of drizzle in the mix as kids waited for, an hour, up to an hour, and but here's some of the sights and sounds.
Yes.
Everybody's favorite.
Yeah.
Where's the mustard? They're going to have to get another.
Here's a big guy.
And his new sleigh with the spirit meter on the back.
Lots of people giving donations.
Oh, and the letters too,
yeah.
right?
Letters to Santa.
Yeah.
Lots of high fives. Lots of really friendly people all along the route yesterday, I found.
That's right.
You, right?
And big thank you to the St. John's Regional Fire Department. That was firefighter George and Lieutenant Hiscock that had me in their truck, and not only in the truck, but in the shotgun seat. They gave me control of the siren. Yeah. So thanks to those two and to the whole fire department for letting me jump.
You were like
aboard.
a kid with that siren. You
yeah,
couldn't stop.
Cool.
I was watching.
Well, the kids were doing this, so you know.
I was watching from the sidelines. I said hi, and you go.
Yeah, definitely. It was, but it was really loud, so I didn't want to overdo it. I hope I didn't. If I hurt your ears, I apologize. Anyway, lots of fun down there, and hopefully everybody enjoyed the parade.
It was great.
So basically what we had yesterday is kind of what we had today. A little bit more damp today with that onshore flow. Temperatures at near 1 right now in St. John's, -1 in Gander, -11 and 12, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and Labrador City. Note those winds coming in. Sustained 30 kilometers per hour in St. John's, 46 kilometer per hour sustained wind in Bonavista, gusting just shy of 60 there. St. John's gusting closer to 40, but gusts tonight will be back in that 50 kilometer per hour range and through the day tomorrow as well. Current wind chills feeling closer to -5, and that's basically where it's been for the last day or so. -11 and 12. Was the exact temperature and the wind chill. So winds very light under this area of high pressure moving into Labrador. Skies clearing out tonight, a cold night on the way there. And again, some partial clearing for basically the western half of the island through the overnight tonight, but that onshore flow continues in the east. Our next system already rolling through the Great Lakes, snow on the northern edge of this. It's a change to rain across the south. And as you take a look at the future tracker over the next 24 hours or so, note that cloud that will start to break up over parts of the west coast by the time we get to tomorrow morning. -5, slight risk of a flurry in the Corner Brook region. Best chance of flurries will be from the Bayvert Peninsula down towards St. John's and even down towards the Burin Peninsula. Temperatures in the 0 to -2 range as you head to the bus tomorrow morning. -16 to 18 for inland parts of Labrador. It will be a cool one. Again, forecast models generally in that 50 kilometer per hour range with those gusts for St. John's and Bonavista. So once again, with temps near 0, it's a wind chill near -5, pretty much from start to finish for you folks tomorrow. As we roll through Tuesday evening and into the overnight is when we'll finally start to see some breaks in that cloud cover. So highs, my forecast highs tomorrow, 0 along the coast, as warm as 1 to 2 degrees along the south coast for tomorrow. And we are looking at good chance of 2 for the southwest coast, Corner Brook near freezing with a mix of sun and cloud and winds in from the northeast with some gusts in the 15 to 20 kilometer per hour range there. There's your forecast for the southeast, -2 to cool as -5 for highs tomorrow. And Labrador City, -5 the high as winds come in from the southeast on the leading edge. Snow into the afternoon and evening hours and then really starting to ramp up as we roll into the Wednesday morning time period with periods of snow tracking into Happy Valley, Goose Bay through Wednesday afternoon. Winds will start to gust in the Port aux Basques region, I think near 80 kilometers per hour by the end of the afternoon on Wednesday. Wreck House, wouldn't be surprised if there's a warning in effect there. Late Wednesday afternoon into the Wednesday evening time period as that next system approaches with increasing clouds and some evening mixing snow changing to rain, I think, pretty quickly here. It's increasing clouds across the rest of the island with temperatures in the 1 to 3 degree range. Now, moving forward for Wednesday night, there is again those gusty winds in Port aux Basques. Note, bit of mixing here across the island, but by Thursday morning, we're all into that rain with that southerly push of air. It's mainly snow in Labrador. That said, I think the southeast will see some mixing. Cartwright back towards the Straits, especially Happy Valley, Goose Bay likely staying in the snow zone here. And note those temps, mild on the island, but boy, there's some snow potential for the weekend, and we'll talk about that coming up in a few minutes. Debbie?
Thanks, Ryan. Well, earlier we told you about an unexpected parking lot delivery at Shoppers Drug Mart in St. John's over the weekend. Seems the newest addition to the DeVoe family didn't want to wait.
Yeah, that's right. While her parents were en route to the hospital on Saturday, the baby decided enough, I'm coming out. And her mom, Nicole, now has more on the story.
My daughter, Elsie, our second born, was 21 minutes after we got to the hospital. So I said, I think you should expect another story like that. I think this is going to be pretty soon. So we got in the car, and I knew it was going to be soon, but not as soon. I was mentally prepared for this. I joked with pretty much everyone I knew that I was going to have this baby in the car because I had my last one so quick. So I'd been doing a prenatal yoga birth preparation course with Bobby Bessie, and anyway, she would talk us through like breathing and what to do and all that. And so anyways, we pulled into the parking lot, and I had this really brief minute of like, man, like, I don't know if, like, can I do this? And then I was just like, well, there's no other choice. We're gonna have to just do it. And so I just went along with what I'd read and what I've been preparing for, and just kind of breathed and let it happen. And she was coming. That was it. There was no stopping her. In hindsight, I wish we'd just stayed home. It was so quick. It had been like 16 minutes since we've been in the car till she was born. So I was like, we really should have just went upstairs and had her. But you don't think you're not going to make it. You think you're going to make it. But yeah, no, it was honestly, everything went really smoothly. We were really lucky. She came out fine, and I was fine, and paramedics showed up right away, and it all went really well. The stars were aligned. She was 7 pounds, 15 ounces, and we named her Carla. We weren't sure on a name. We've been hemming and hawing for a couple of months about baby names, and we were in the case room after the ambulance brought us over, and my husband was saying, well, we got to name her. What are we going to name her? And finally I said, well, why don't we just name her Carla, because she was born in a car, and I mean, that's about as fitting as it gets.
It is fitting.
It's nice, yeah. Better than trucka, so it's a good thing it was a car.
Yeah.
How do we show, our everyday lives to say this is how we live our lives? Let's see us as full citizens, not just, an inspiration or someone to be pitied.
A new social media campaign challenging stereotypes toward disability in the province has come to a successful end, according to organizers. The Everyday Power campaign is the brainchild of the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities. Numerous videos and still pictures were submitted by people who live every day with a disability and then posted online. Here's a sample. Emily Christie is the Executive Director of the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities, or COD. Emily, thanks for being here. So this is the first year for this campaign. Where did the idea come from?
So the idea actually originally came from a project we did a couple years ago, marketing media workshop around really kind of trying to break some of the stigma that comes up in media when we hear media stories talking about people who have, are wheelchair bound, or different uses of language that we don't really prefer, that we don't want people kind of using. We said, how do we spin this in a way that we get rid of the stigma, or we get rid of that kind of inspirational story that often gets covered? How do we show, our everyday lives to say, this is how we live our lives. Let's see us as full citizens, not just, an inspiration or someone to be pitied.
So how successful has it been?
Yeah. So we did a call for applications back in October, and over the course of the month we had over 25 submissions from across the province, and through that we've actually had 250,000 interactions, engagements through social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. So it's been a really impressive piece, more than I think we ever anticipated, and really makes us hopeful that a lot of engagement has happened and start mind shift really around the attitudes around people with disabilities and how we kind of shape out people's lives and our thoughts.
Well, the video that I understand was the most viewed was from a woman, Danielle. She had a car accident 10 years ago and it's an amputee. Just tell us her story.
I think Danielle's story is really excellent because her story is all about, this is how I might live my life. Like, this is me doing what I need to do to get through my life, and that involves home renovations. So here I am, I have one arm, and this is me tearing up my deck, and this is what I need to do to live. And I'm not, here to inspire you. I'm just here living my life doing the chores around my house.
So Emily, let's talk about another video. It's called Brennan's Story.
Yeah. So Brennan had Brennan had two submissions. So one of them was a beautiful video, very artistically done, showing Brennan doing one of his favorite things, which is being out in nature. And I think it's really, it's a very unique video because Brennan is nonverbal, or as we like to say, uniquely verbal. And so there's, difficulty around communication is evident with Brennan, but I think when we actually take the time to learn about somebody and engage with them, we learn that we can communicate, and that if we actually take time to stop and say, it might not be, the way I'm used to communicating, how do I break that stereotype or that stigma within myself to say I can reach out and go past that and really get to experience what Brendan experiences.
It is a beautiful video, Emily. Was there a particular theme that emerged after you got all these submissions?
You know what? It really organically fell into place. I think the theme was really circled around how do we break down some barriers and how do we break down stereotypes. And I think so often we hear the negativity that affects people's lives, the barriers that are constantly in place, but we never actually hear what are the positive things going on in your life and how do we bring that to the foreground? Because if we focus on the positive, if we focus on the solutions, then maybe we can address the bigger issues and the bigger barriers that are stopping people from full engagement.
So Emily, was there any sort of theme that emerged from the submissions? I understand people with non-visible disabilities did submit.
That's right, yeah. So I think the campaign really lent itself well for people with non-visible disabilities to come forward and say, you know, often we don't get talked about in the media, where we're living life through different disabilities, whether it's chronic illness or autism or fibromyalgia or mental health disability, and it's not so much on the front radar to really say these are disabilities that people are living their lives and working through on a daily basis. So it really kind of shined through on this campaign for sure.
And the person who won this campaign via a random draw happens to have fibromyalgia, and we have some pictures that she submitted, not a video, still pictures, and just speak to her situation.
Yeah, so I think, you know, Emily came forward with showing, you know, this is how I power through my fibromyalgia. This is how, these are the self-care that I use. This is how I make sure and I kind of tackle my challenges throughout my day to make sure I'm centered. And there's a nice picture of her doing yoga and just really focusing around of how do I find that power within myself to push through some of the difficulties that face me every day.
So Emily, just finally, I mean, what do you hope is the value of this campaign?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the time, you know, the value really is that this is just people showcasing, this is how I live my life. I'm not an inspiration, I'm not a burden, I'm living my life, I'm living it to the fullest despite all the barriers that I have to face. Lots of challenges that still exist in our province for people with disabilities, but let's highlight some of the good stuff going on so that it's not just about focused on stigma and stereotypes. Let's really see people for who they are.
Emily Christie, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.
CRA changes the tax rules, sticking it to diabetics.
Can't afford extra things, food.
Okay then, let's meet our young athlete of the day. Here is 3-year-old Charlie Bennett of Foxtrap. Charlie completed her first year of soccer earlier this season.
And Charlie also enjoys taking swimming and dancing classes.
Way to go, Charlie. You're today's young athlete of the day.
Great blue shoes, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyone who has children knows the joy of taking them for a picture with Santa.
Yeah, it's not always fun depending on the mood your child might find themselves in.
Yeah, have a look at this one photo that a viewer sent to us.
Oh!
Wow.
Oh, what a sin.
Oh.
Yeah, Santa has this complete look of resignation on his face.
Shad Fitzgerald of Paradise sent this picture to us of his daughter, definitely not enjoying the Santa picture. And I was just commenting to Debbie and Anthony, I think that my oldest might be, this year he's 2.5. I think this might be the year for that picture. Not quite convinced about the guy in the big beard.
The extension of the arms. Get me out of here.
Yeah. Anyway, good luck to all you fellow parents, hoping to get the picture with the big guy. Okay, so weather forecast over the next couple of days. In case you missed it earlier, have a look at the next 3. We are trending up in terms of temperatures as we roll through the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday time period with some rain coming for Newfoundland. Labrador, the opposite, where we'll see a bit of a warm up with that snow coming in on Wednesday and then some cooler air spilling in behind, especially for the west on Thursday. Now, I want to back things up to your current temperatures across North America, because I want to give you a taste of the long range. And to set the stage here, note this cold air, minus 18 in Fort Mac, spilling down into the northwest parts of the U.S. Watch this over the next couple of days. Watch the cold air plunge southward, all the way down to the southern parts of the U.S. We're talking about single-digit highs later this week, as far south as Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, of course, Oklahoma, maybe even some snow chances down that far south. That will, because of that cold air spilling all the way down and over towards the southeast parts of the U.S. and, of course, the eastern seaboard, that's going to set the stage for an active setup for us later this week once that cold air is firmly in place across the continent. So watch this low, builds in the Gulf of Mexico through the Thursday, Friday time period. We've got snow chances in the southeast parts of the U.S. They'll all be fired up in New York and Boston up the eastern seaboard for the Friday night potential. And then for Atlantic Canada, the Maritimes, and across Newfoundland, later Friday into Saturday, keeping a very close eye on this system. One model, one run, but certainly enough that we're going to be keeping a very close eye on that Saturday system, following up with another Sunday shot where we could go again from snow to rain across the island with snow for Labrador and some cooler air rushing back in behind. So the big theme here is the 1-2 punch, I think, late Friday into Saturday and then again for Sunday and into Monday here across the island with snow potential for both of those systems, even for the east, especially that first system on Friday night into Saturday. So enjoy the next calm couple of days, and then we, of course, have the rain for Thursday, and then things turning active for that Saturday, Sunday, Monday time period in Labrador. Snow potential for Wednesday, bit of a clear out as we work towards the Friday time period. I think that first system is a miss for you folks for the most part, but certainly watching that Sunday into Monday system. And note those normals should be around minus 11 for this time of year. You're back towards the seasonal mark in Lab West as we roll towards the weekend. That's your forecast to now. We'll have your viewer photo of the day coming up in a few minutes.
People with life-threatening diseases, including diabetes, can spend a lot of time and money managing their health. The federal disability tax credit is supposed to take away some of that sting. But while Ottawa insists there's been no rule change this year, the Canada Revenue Agency has told many they no longer qualify for the tax break. And healthcare advocates want an explanation.
Either been a terrible breach in communication between the CRA and the minister, or the minister has been expressing false information.
Now, our Julie Van Dusen is tracking both sides of this issue, and she joins me now from Ottawa. Julie, before we get to the minister's position on this, give me an idea of what changed and how that's affected people who have diabetes.
Well, basically, they've come to Ottawa to say we're being treated like liars and cheaters, so you don't get that every day. For years, a lot of people that have type 1 diabetes have been eligible to get a credit that works out to about $1,500 a year. Now, to get that credit, Anthony, they have to show that maintaining their diabetes takes about 14 hours a week, monitoring their sugar levels, administering insulin to themselves. And for the most part, their doctor would back that. It went through lickety-split. It's been going on for like about 10 years, this system. Suddenly, months ago, Diabetes Canada found that hundreds of people were being rejected, brought this up to the government. The government said, no, nothing's different, nothing's changed. So they did an access to information, remember those, and they found an email that basically dated from May 2nd of this year, saying that really only under exceptional circumstances can people get this tax credit. So they knew they weren't imagining things, and today they said, look, what gives? We want this to change. And there was a woman at the news conference who is an actual person who used to get the credit. It was backed by her doctor, and nothing has changed in her life, but she's been rejected. So take a listen to Jill Coombs.
Afford extra things, food, daily living. Like, my diabetes expenses are so high right now. Taking more away, like, we're left with nothing.
So it looks pretty real. Diabetes Canada is pretty much saying the minister isn't telling the truth, Julie, about this change in practice or rules. What's the government saying about this now?
Well, the government is saying that the criteria hasn't changed, that they look at everything on a case-by-case basis. They've set up an advisory committee to, to tell them how the taxes are affecting people with diabetes. In other words, like, it's kind of a lot of gobbledygook if you're sitting there and you've had your tax credit canceled. So I don't think this is going away, and we'll see what happens next, but it certainly wasn't a clear answer for those organizations who have hundreds of documents of people who have been rejected.
That's the CBC's Julie Van Dusen in Ottawa.
This is a beautiful picture taken last night in a community in Labrador, and this was their tree lighting. And if you can guess the community, you win. Bragging rights.
Makovic.
Good guess, but no.
It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a Christmas tree?
Nunavik Airmail made a very special delivery over the weekend to Kuujjuaq, it's in northern Quebec. It's the annual Christmas tree drop. The village doesn't have a sled big enough to haul that tree.
Wow, look at the size of it. So a helicopter it has to be, certainly not something you see every day, but after 5 years it's becoming a bit of a tradition now, and the mayor says it really brightens the community, and I can see why. Just imagine it all lit up. It's a beauty.
It's cool for the kids to watch it come in from the sky. Right? That's a big tree too.
That's a huge tree, yeah.
Almost as big as the one we saw in the car last weekend here.
Yeah, that's right.
That was the tree.
Yeah, that's right. That's where they were headed. Now we know. Boy, what a perfect segue, completely unplanned, but from Kuujjuaq to another community that is in the far north, This one is Debbie almost guessed. Debbie guessed Hopedale, where one jumped north of there to Nain. And what a picture. This was taken last night to the supermoon, and which is, of course, right there in the shot as well. And Sheena Lucy in Nain shot this of their Christmas tree lighting.
Absolutely. Gorgeous sky. Look at the sparkling,
The moon
not the lights on the tree, but look at the stars.
Stars, yeah.
It was a crystal clear night. Is that the moon behind the steeple in the cloud?
Yes,
there?
it is.
Fabulous composition.
So that's Sheena Lucy in Nain. Thank you so much for that.
And yeah, so many great pictures posted to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Ryan.Snoddon, and you can post yours there. And if you're ever looking for some nice pictures, just go to Post a Page, and you can see all of the posts that folks have been submitting. So many great pics.
I guess we're going to get a Christmassy theme now.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely. We went from the beautiful colors of fall, and I think we'll see a lot more Christmas lights in future
Maybe
pics.
some more crying babies. Anyway, have a great night, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.
Bye.